Good evening, everyone. Nice to be back with you again. It'd be nice to know how many of you completed the first series. I know we have people still entering, but for those of you who are here, maybe you could raise your hands, or how could we communicate that, Yuntan Lama? What would be the best way to just kind of get an idea of how many people actually did the first series?
Let me issue a poll.
Yeah, I would appreciate it if you would just respond to this poll, so I know how many of you have had some experience with the first 10 sessions that we did. Good, thank you, Joseph. Oh, good. We've got a number of people who did.
Okay. I'm just setting up, I'm just going to issue a poll in just a moment so we can get it right by count. So
thank you.
Okay.
Great, thank you.
Okay, I just sent the question out.
So let's see. There's the poll. Good.
Okay.
Of those here, yes, a majority have done that. So that is good.
Yeah, it looks like 19 yeses and 3 nos.
You will also see, for those of you who go on to the KTD website, there is a questionnaire about how you experienced those first teachings as well. And we would like your feedback. There's a series of questions so that we can continue to provide, teachings that are that you like, and to give us some feedback on what you liked with the first series. There'll probably be one to follow, excuse me, for this series as well. So we'll begin with the refuge and bodhicitta prayers. So when you're ready, you can put those on the screen for us. We'll start with refuge. And then we will do the lineage prayer following that. It's really good to do the lineage prayer as part of your practice, certainly doing the, excuse me, the first refuge and raising bodhicitta when you do your practice at home. But the lineage prayer is a wonderful, very pithy prayer that outlines the aspects of our Mahamudra lineage teachers and the aspects of Mahamudra that we're cultivating. So we'll say this twice or 3 times. The first time in the Tibetan, then in the English, and maybe in the well, we'll just do it in the Tibetan. I was going to, for those of you who are translating, You can do it as well in the language that you're translating, so in the Chinese as well, and in the Spanish. So, Sanjay Chudang Soki Chok Nam La Jiangju Padu Dakni Chop Su Chi Dagi Jin Sok Chi Pei So Nam Ki Dro La Pen Chir Sanjay Drupar Shok Sanjay Chudang Soki Chok Nam La Jiangju Padu Dakni Chop Su Chi Dagi Jin Sok Chi Pei So Nam Ki Androla Penchir Sanjay Drupar Shok. And for those of you translating, you can translate it in the language for your translation, and I'll do it in the English as well. Until I reach enlightenment, I take refuge in the Buddha, in the Dharma, and the Noble Sangha. Through the merit of accomplishing the six perfections, may I achieve awakening for the benefit of all sentient beings. So you may see a little change. I'm used to chanting this in an older fashion. This is a newer one to me. But so if you do hear me saying something different than's on the screen, not to worry, they are very much the same. But in your, we can chant this together, the Tapo Kaju lineage prayer. Om Dorje Chang Chen Telo Na Rodang Marpa Mi La Cho Je Gambo Pa Adu Sum She Ja Kun Gen Karma Pa She Shi Jun Ji Ju Ba Zin Nam Dang Nandri Tak Sal Sum Pa Den Dru Pa Suk Zablam Chak Ya Che La Nya Ne Pen Nyame Drogundak Boka Jula Solwa Deb Soka Jula Manam Jubasin No Nam Tarjin Jilo Zen lo gom ji gong bar sung ba zin Zenor kun la chak sen me barang se dir du tak chu be gom chen la Ne kursen pa me pa jen jilo magu gom di go or song pa zin men up there go je be la Gundu so Oadeb Begom Chenla Chomin Mergu Ke Wajin Jilo Yang Megom Jino
shir zung apazin gang sharto pe no o so ma de ma che de ga cho be gom chen la Agom chalo dang chal wa jin lo nam tok no cha akur sung apazin Chiang ma yin chir yang char wa la Maga kro pa char we gom jen la go de yer me tok ba jin je lo ge wa kun du yang da lama adam Rame cho ki pa la lon cha jing sarang lam ji o ten rab so kane ando je chang gi go pang ne tok shok Doje changi go bangner tok show. Olin sawe lama rinpoche dagi chiwo poda. Lama rinpoche dagi chiwo bede dinjigla kadin champo gone jesumte kusum tuji nudu. So, good evening, everyone, and thank you for taking the time to join us. This is the first of the second level of the Dharma paths, Introduction to Buddhism, based upon a book by our first abbot of KTD Monastery, Khenpo Karthar Rinpoche. And we have 10 teachers and 10 topics, plus 2 open forum question answer sessions that will be over these next couple months, actually. So I will be leading this off. The topic for tonight is the role of meditation in our study. And that will be followed by foundational Buddhism on the 10th, the history and terminology. That will be by Lama Zopa Tarchin. And after that, understanding the world and beings, the interdependent origination. That is by Lama Tom Broadwater. And the next week will be the 4 foundations of mindfulness by Khenpo Karma Tenkyong. And then the following month on 5/1, May 1st, Lama Kathy will be teaching Bodhicitta. And then after that, the 5th session, we will have another question and answer with the teachers. And then on 5/15, the 6 perfections by Khenpo Ujin Tenzin. And then the 4 measurables by Khenpo Sanjay Trinley. And then the relative and absolute truth by Lama Rob. And on 6/5, June 5th, the emptiness by Lama Karma Doodle will be teaching that one. And the last one will be Vajrayana, the guru-student relationship by Lama Sotam Yeshe. And then we'll have the last question and answer with the teachers on June 19th. So that is the schedule that we'll be following for this second series of teachings. So again, welcome. And, it's not unusual for students to ask, how now that we've learned these things, how do we deepen our Dharma practice? And Lama Kathy wrote a brief kind of answer to that question in 3 parts. And the first one was, taking your take your practice off your cushion and into your daily life. So we can get used to our sitting practice, but it really doesn't allow us the opportunity to practice just on the cushion. So we really want to develop these practices and what we have gleaned, both from our reading and contemplation and practice, into our daily life. And instead of trying to simply increase your cushion time, try to erase the imaginary line, as it was said, that most people draw between their meditation seat and the rest of their lives. We have to incorporate these teachings into our day-to-day activity. So there are several ways to do this. So the first is to train your mind in wishing for the benefit of beings. And Khenpo Rinpoche always said that if you develop a really strong inner wish to benefit all sentient beings, your practice will automatically deepen. So to help accomplish this, think about your wish to benefit sentient beings as often as you can. While you are walking, standing, eating, going through all of your daily activities, think, may I be of benefit to everyone who sees me, hears me, touches me, etc. And when you wake up in the morning, think, may everything I do today benefit beings in some way, and may we all come to Buddhahood. We want to cultivate this mind of enlightenment, this bodhicitta. So at night, before you go to bed, think, may I benefit beings tonight, even in my dreams, and may we all come to Buddhahood. Secondly, you can make offerings to the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas as often as you can. When you see something beautiful, a sunset, a flower, a tree, a person, anything, mentally offer it to the Buddha and the Bodhisattvas for the benefit of suffering beings. So, offer your meals. There's a meal prayer that is often said. If you've been at KTD, we will offer the food with a meal prayer. You offer anything new that you may buy before you wear it or consume it. You offer it to the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas for the benefit of suffering beings. And your store of merit will increase, and your wish to achieve Buddhahood for the benefit of beings will also increase by that practice. So it's not just on the cushion. It is in every aspect of our life is a practice. And you can recite mantras mentally when you're not doing anything, or your mind is, how our monkey mind is. Mantra means mind protection. So instead of going down, that usually most thoughts that we think are just repeated over and over again. And the word mantra means mind protection. So just if you're doing in particular a yidam practice, use that mantra as a way to deepen your practice during the day by chanting that mantra. while you're waiting in line, or while you're stopped in traffic, or whenever you have the opportunity. And the more you think about doing it and doing it, again, we're generating merit, and it is a skillful means to take our practice off the cushion and into our daily life. And you can also, use Tonglen as a practice. That was part of the first series, talking about Tonglen, and use your off the cushion Tonglen whenever you see a situation. If you lose your temper, or you see someone else losing their temper, feeling lonely or jealous, or all the different emotions that can arise in the course of a day. If you're like me, that means you'll be doing it several times a day. And to do this, think, may the anger or jealousy or envy or any of those emotions, think that may that emotion, that feeling that all beings have, may that suffering, may my suffering in this situation, through this moment of anger, may all beings be free of anger, and may we all come to Buddhahood in the future. So these, that is 3 ways, to train your mind in wishing for the benefit of beings, in making offerings to the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas for meals or any activity even. But if you purchase something or something like that, have that in your mind stream to make that offering as well. And then to use Tonglen as an ongoing practice. So if you're feeling something, we know that this is not peculiar to us. These are habitual patterns that we all experience. And so may our experience of that, which if that makes the suffering a skillful action, and we can uproot it by dedicating it so that all beings come to Buddhahood in the future. May they resolve those kleshas, those habitual patterns, just as we will. So the other thing is to continue to develop your relationship with a teacher. So teachers help give our practice direction, so that if you can work with a teacher, and they can help us avoid the pitfalls, dead ends, and wrong turns that can develop during our practice. So if you don't have a teacher right now, then you can do Guru Yoga practice. And with the Buddha himself as your guru. And the Buddha will be a good stand-in for for a teacher. He is the quintessential teacher. So until you meet one, if you don't happen to have one, then we put our faith and devotion in the Buddha, and we are dedicating the merit that we continually are aspiring to cultivate this mind of enlightenment. And so if we can do a Guru Yoga, that would be excellent. And think about starting Nindro practice. That is another way. And I'm sure you have heard of Nindro, the extraordinary Nindro practice, the 4 extraordinary practices. We won't talk about that now. That was part of the first series, and there will be more about that along the way. And if you would like to practice Mahamudra meditation, this is the best approach. These are the foundation practices in our Mahamudra lineage. And so we have recommended certain books in that regard as well. So if you want more information about Nindro, the best source for that is the book Torch of Certainty by Jamgon Kongtrul. So all of these are important and helpful, so we can cultivate this off the cushion time. But meditation is key. teachings of the Buddha are basically, in a nutshell, to cultivate virtue, to avoid harm and wrongdoing, and to tame our mind. And meditation is the vehicle for doing that. Meditation will always be the most important ingredient in our progress on the path. So this teaching comes from my study with meditation master Khenpo Rinpoche. And as you heard in the introduction, I completed the traditional 3-year retreat under the tutelage of Khenpo Rinpoche. And it is taught that as human beings, we all have the capacity to develop profound understanding, loving kindness, compassion, and wisdom. This is true whether you are male or female, rich or poor, or whatever your race, creed, nationality, or background may be. And this potential is naturally present in all of us. So you can have confidence that just as all the bodhisattvas, they started out just like we do. You know, they had their kleshas and their habitual patterns and their attachments and aversions to overcome. And as the Buddha said, we do that by cultivating virtue. So we're adding those practices to do that, and basically we can review a little bit about the Noble Eightfold Path, which is the vehicle for doing that, and to uproot our negative kleshas, our habitual patterns that we've been cultivating since beginningless time. And we do that by the skillful means that the Buddha taught. But we do need a method. You know, this potential is naturally present in all of us. However, we need a method in order to first recognize and acknowledge this potential. Then we must come to understand it, you know, the method. And finally, we have the means to develop it. As was also mentioned, I have a PhD in psychology from the University of Florida. And I always say to people, if you want to know the mind, study Buddhism. It is a supreme psychology, and the Buddha was a supreme psychologist. But as we said, in Buddhism, meditation plays a central role and is essential for, is a key to our spiritual practice. Excuse me. So meditation is the fundamental tool for cultivating our mindfulness, concentration, insight, and wisdom. It is a means to develop awareness and mental clarity and emotional well-being and our spiritual growth. So usually we talk about several types of meditation, so we should briefly just mention those. So there are several types of meditation in Buddhism, but two of the most common ones are shamatha is our tranquility meditation. And as you remember, or as you've studied, this type of meditation focuses on developing our concentration, calmness, and tranquility by focusing the mind on a single object. Such as the breath. We often use the breath, but it can be mantras, it can be a visual object like a rupa, an image of the Buddha. And through this practice, one cultivates a sense of inner peace and stability. That is fundamental. I often use the example of training a puppy. You know, we have to do that over and over again. When we tell the puppy to sit, does it do so? Not so much. It's running after the next thing that it attracts its attention. And our mind is not much different than that. It's constantly comparing, contrasting, analyzing, and running here, there, and the next place. You know, we call it our monkey mind for a reason. It is continually jumping from one thought to another. So our training, our tranquility meditation comes first, shamatha. And next is once we have that stability of mind, we can use that focus, that concentration, that stability to be more absorbed in our samadhi. And this is called vipassana, or insight meditation, which aims to develop our wisdom. That is key. The shamatha does not help us to uproot our kleshas. But as we develop stability of the mind, we can uproot these negative tendencies. And that is what leads to our aware mind, insight, and ultimately wisdom, our Buddha nature, to rest one-pointedly in that Buddha nature. So this helps practitioners, to investigate the nature of their mind and phenomenon, and leading to a deeper understanding of the ultimate nature of reality. So practitioners observe their thoughts, emotions, sensations with mindfulness, and eventually leading to deeper understanding of impermanence, the nature of our suffering, and non-self. These are sometimes called the 3 marks of existence: impermanence, suffering, and non-self, which is the core of the Buddha's teaching. So meditation is not just a way to relax or reduce stress. Sometimes, you see a lot of things on the internet, and it's being taught as a way to relax and de-stress. This is a spiritual discipline that helps practitioners move towards enlightenment and liberation and away from suffering, or dukkha, as the Sanskrit or Pali word dukkha. And this was the first noble truth that the Buddha taught after his enlightenment. The 4 noble truths, and the first of which is that there is suffering. And the result of meditation is the achievement of a deep state of concentration and insight that leads to awakening. Sometimes this awakening is called nirvana, and an end to the cycle of birth and death. And this cycle of birth and death is known as samsara. And it is our ignorance that keeps us spiraling, going round and round in samsara. And there's a third type of meditation that we will talk about a little bit as we continue, and that is Mahamudra. So we did the Mahamudra lineage prayer, and I said that it is a very pithy prayer. And to study that prayer will give you insight into the Mahamudra teachings and actually how we practice it as well. So I will suggest that you spend time with that prayer. And Khenchen Trungpa Rinpoche wrote a wonderful book on the Mahamudra lineage prayer. The Mahamudra lineage prayer, A Guide to Practice, by Khenchen Trungpa Rinpoche. And maybe you could, Yonten, put the reference to that in the chat for people. It is worth studying because it is something that, just like we started this session with the Mahamudra prayer, and it's certainly not unusual to start teachings with this, to put our mind in compatible. And so understanding what those words mean, as Khenchen Trungpa Rinpoche describes it, is really meaningful and skillful practice. So I refer you to that. So Mahamudra is associated particularly with our Karma Kagyu school of Tibetan Buddhism. And Mahamudra is translated as Great Seal, or Great Symbol. But it indicates the ultimate nature of reality and the mind, our Buddha nature. It is considered one of the most advanced and direct methods to realize the nature of mind and to achieve enlightenment. And it is the direct experience of the mind's nature. And we can read and contemplate these things, but it is meditation where we have the direct experience of the nature of our mind. So in terms of meditation, the importance of meditation, it is the most important method for cultivating this awareness. So it is the direct experience of the mind's nature, free from conceptual elaboration and dualistic thinking. Practitioners engage in various meditation techniques, excuse me, to recognize this innate purity, clarity, and emptiness of mind. So the practice often involves a close relationship with a qualified teacher. That's why we said it's good if you can find a teacher, particularly when we're thinking about this more advanced practice, to have guidance. A teacher can provide guidance and instruction tailored to the individual practitioner's needs and to assist in their progress. Just to elaborate on that a little bit more, there are elements of Mahamudra meditation, and they include such things as pointing out instructions. And what we're doing right now can be like a pointing out instruction. The teacher may provide direct pointing out instructions to help the practitioner recognize the nature of their mind beyond conceptual thinking. But that requires, a certain, we mentioned Nundro, the preliminary practices that prepares the mind for this kind of practice. And along with that, we mentioned shamatha, calm abiding. We have to cultivate this calm abiding, and practitioners cultivate single-pointed concentration through shamatha meditation to stabilize the mind, as I mentioned, and to develop mental clarity. And then this naturally can develop the insight meditation or vipassana. Insight meditation helps practitioners investigate more deeply the nature of their mind and phenomena leading to a deeper understanding and absorption in the ultimate nature of the mind. This absorption is called samadhi. So we want to rest the mind in that state for extended periods of time. And that is where the wisdom comes in. That is where we realize directly the nature of our mind. And in the Mahamudra tradition, we also talk about non-meditation, but that is a different thing. Mahamudra practitioners are encouraged to recognize the nature of their mind through meditation in all activities. We were mentioning, being off the cushion. So Mahamudra practitioners are encouraged to recognize the nature of the mind in all activities, not just during formal meditation. But this includes integrating the practice into our daily life. So it is a powerful path to enlightenment, emphasizing direct experience over intellectual understanding. As I mentioned, intellectual understanding is one thing, direct experience is quite another. And it is usually practiced by advanced practitioners under the guidance, as I mentioned, of an experienced teacher. Due to the subtle and profound nature of the practice, it is important for us to have guidance. So we are developing wisdom by learning how to observe our mind. And in so doing, we can decrease negative mind states, these mentioned kleshas,
or habitual patterns that we have developed, and to cultivate positive mind states through yidam practices and other skillful means. So to develop wisdom and insight, we need a calm, clear, and concentrated mind. And we need to develop a kind of inner sentinel at first. And this is an active observer, a part of our attention that watches our state of mind, to be able to decrease negative mind states and to understand them, where they come from, and how to transform them into positive energy and virtue. And with the wisdom developed from observing our own mind and developing these positive mind states, we begin to focus away from the selfishness and begin to develop a more altruistic view. You know, we talk about bodhicitta, the mind of enlightenment, which is wanting that same state for all suffering beings. And as one progresses along the path, one realizes that our suffering is self-created. You know, we create our suffering because of our wrong views, because of our habitual patterns, and the karmic seeds that we create as a result of those unskillful actions. So we begin to develop wisdom by observing our mind carefully. One of the precious teachers of our Kagyu lineage is Taisitu Rinpoche. And in a commentary that he made on the Karmapa's Mahamudra prayer, which is a different prayer, the Karmapa's Mahamudra prayer, equally important, he gives the following quote and explanation. He says, "The waves of gross and subtle thoughts subside in their own place. The stream of mind rests unmoved in itself. May we be free from the stains of agitation, stupor, and dullness, and establish a still ocean of calm abiding." So Rinpoche goes on to say that this prayer describes the ideal state of calm abiding. In this state, all gross and subtle thoughts are naturally pacified, which is to say that they are temporarily calmed down. And when the mind is free from these disturbing thoughts, it becomes stable and can abide in a state without there being any need for a deliberate effort. In that situation, the two things can happen, he says. The first is agitation. This refers to the extroverted state in which the mind, he says, falls into a gaze, which is very fascinated, or we get spaced out with our mind and our thoughts. And the second concept of two types of extremely introverted states are stupor and dullness. We just kind of go blank. And these are almost the same. Under the influence of stupor, one might easily fall asleep. It is a state of blankness. It's a state of extreme cloudiness of the mind. It can be, it's often compared to polluted water, you know, that has dirt in it, and then you can't see through it, but as it becomes still, it becomes clear. So the shamatha aspect allows the mind to become still and tranquil and clear. And just like the example of water that has sediment in it, we let it rest naturally and that sediment subsides.
But really, the shamatha is rare, and we keep saying one must develop their shamatha. One of the very common problems is that people try too hard. As Westerners, we could learn a lot about relaxing more and more deeply, and letting that stability arise from that relaxation. And if you are coming from a very serene space, your mind is already spacious. It has that quality of spaciousness. And then it is probably, that's a good start. Sometimes we are just too tight. You know, we say not to be too tight or too loose. So talking a little bit about the qualities of our mind, I think, is important to be able to see clearly. So we say our degree of attention can be a big problem, and we can fall into lethargy and dullness. So if we are not attentive, that can happen. However, we can exhaust ourselves and cause nervous fatigue if the attention becomes too tight and we push too hard. And that happens a lot to beginning practitioners in particular. There's a story about the Buddha, a famous story about a practitioner named Shrona in the sutras, who asked the Buddha about the best way to meditate. And the Buddha asked Shrona, who he had been a musician before he was a monk, and what was the best method to get sound out of his instrument? The Buddha asked him, what was the best method to get sound out of his instrument? Was it when the strings were very tight or when they were very loose? And Shrona answered, well, neither. The best sound came when the strings were neither too loose nor too tight. The Buddha replied, it is the same way for your mind and meditation. It should neither be too concentrated nor too relaxed. So we want to find that fine point. We will discuss the application of antidotes when these extremes arise later. But as we said, meditation is a process of getting to know our mind, how it works, and training our attention to rest where we place it. So by practicing meditation, you can get used to remaining present, undisturbed by whatever thoughts or emotions arise in your mind. But as I mentioned, our mind normally behaves like an excited wild monkey jumping from thing to thing, place to place. So we sit down to meditate, and at first we're present watching our breath, but after a few moments we are lost in a daydream. We may have started out by watching the breath, but soon we are in the kitchen preparing dinner, or in the grocery store, or thinking of what we need to get for dinner. And so we are like time travelers. You know, we're constantly projecting into the future. And before long, several minutes have passed, and we realize we have forgotten about the breath or the focus of our attention. The monkey mind jumps here and there, almost without stopping. So when the monkey mind tells us something, we react in one of two ways. We follow it or we fight with it. If our mind tells us something good, we follow it. And if our mind tells us something disagreeable, we fight with it. And meditation is neither about craving or clinging nor rejecting. So that's what the Buddha said about being too tight or too loose. We don't want to fight with it. Meditation is neither about craving or clinging nor rejecting, but rather about learning how to be present in the face of whatever arises in our mind with equanimity. So this becomes the practice. And in this way, we gradually tame the restless monkey mind, making our mind more pliable and more workable. negative thoughts and emotions hold less and less sway over us as we progress in our meditation. This is the actual fruit of meditation, mastering our mind. Calmness of mind may be a nice side effect, but the real fruit of meditation practice is that our mind becomes more and more flexible and less a prisoner of our habitual patterns and ways of reacting, which is often just a knee-jerk response. Are you seeing what I'm seeing on the screen?
Catherine, please stop the whiteboard. I'm trying to get rid of it.
Okay, thank you. There we go. Okay, so we are able to place our attention where we want it, basically, is what I'm getting to here. And thoughts and emotions, while still arising, won't distract us. That's the point. We can choose to follow it if it suits our needs, but we are no longer blown about like a leaf in the wind. You know, as each thought or emotion breezes through, it comes and it goes, and we don't attach ourselves to it. Okay. So we use this natural awareness to make sure we are being mindful. This has two purposes. It keeps the grasping monkey mind busy, you know, when we're focusing our awareness on an object such as our breath. So in the beginning, it is important in our shamatha practice that, and there are different practices, as I mentioned, there is meditation with an object, and that can be the breath, and there's meditation without an object. But we want to get the direct experience of this awareness, you know, whenever we're practicing meditation with an object, such as following the breath, and we realize that we have become distracted. That moment of knowing we become distracted is the arising of that awareness, and we want to catch it as quickly as we can. That awareness is the naturally free of thoughts and emotions. That's our natural mind. It's just clear awareness. And as we return our attention to the breath or whatever objects we are using, we return to our meditation, and we follow the breath or whatever our focus is. So we use this natural awareness. But in the beginning, the meditation with an object that we use the breath as to keep the monkey mind from distracting us. We continually return it again and again to the breath, and it allows us to gradually become more and more familiar with the awareness itself. And so we become more familiar. We become with this awareness. The more we enter into non-distraction. So as previously mentioned, the Tibetan word for meditation is gom. I think I mentioned that, but gom, it means becoming familiar with. So we're becoming familiar with our natural mind, that clear awareness. So there is one more quality that I wanted to emphasize just as we explore this, and that we mentioned, and that is the feeling of kind of a relaxed spaciousness. If our mind is too tight in meditation, we become overly concerned with holding the object of our meditation in mind. And meditation then becomes a practice of grasping and holding the object and forgetting about the object, and we become too tight. You know, to use the example of our our lute or guitar strings being too tight. And we begin when we bring in a relaxed, that spacious attitude to our meditation. We don't have to block anything or grasp too tightly. We just allow our natural awareness to maintain mindfulness. But we don't chase thoughts and emotions away. Just like when the skillful, when we're skillful in observing the mind with a relaxed, spacious attitude, we allow thoughts and emotions. We allow them space to arise and then fall naturally away. If unattended, they naturally dissolve into emptiness and spaciousness. And we can bring our attention back to the object of our meditation. This is shamatha. Then the power of thoughts to distract us naturally dissipates. And we can rest our mind in its own natural spaciousness, mindful awareness, free from ordinary thoughts and emotions. So that is shamatha. And we should briefly just mention a little bit about vipassana as well, or insight. So there are two types of analytical meditation, or vipassana, or insight meditation. It's also called analytical meditation. One is to transform our attitude. For example, by understanding the problems and misunderstanding of anger, we can reduce and ultimately eliminate our negative habitual patterns or kleshas of anger. So as I mentioned, first we have to stabilize the mind, and then we begin looking into these habitual patterns, these emotions. And then we can look into them and begin to understand, that they're empty. An analysis of the meditation object to understand and perceive it directly. So for example, we may ask, if we're looking at death, will I die? You may immediately say yes, and you may feel finished. But take some time to check with yourself if you really live your life consciously in realization that you can die at any moment. This is not being pessimistic or this is a fact of life. And to carry this meditation further, it may lead you to question karma. This may lead to further exploration of karma. And that makes it part of your understanding and wisdom. So there are a variety of ways this insight meditation works, this vipassana works. We have to have the correct understanding. So according to the Buddha and many great masters following in his footsteps, we need to practice both the single-pointed concentration in the form of shamatha and insight meditation, vipassana. So all the Buddhists emphasize meditation, particularly tranquility meditation, the shamatha and insight meditation. And these sitting meditation practices differ slightly in different schools, but have the same goal, to tame the mind so our wisdom mind can shine forth. So as I mentioned before, the Buddhist teaching consists of cultivating virtue, avoiding wrongdoing, and taming the mind. The Buddha said that in his teachings that, he said, I cannot take away the suffering of beings, nor can I give them my wisdom and realization. That is not possible. What I can do instead is teach the method for attaining enlightenment, that is without error. And the Buddha continued, whether or not a person is able to attain complete liberation, experience an end to suffering, and actualize a total development of wisdom will depend upon the person's efforts in his or her practice. This means that even if two students receive the same teachings, one of them might develop faster due to superior diligence and motivation. So we do have to cultivate this motivation in our practice. So the Buddha started by sharing the first of the three teachings, where he showed the stages of the path to full awakening. And they are known as the three turnings of the wheel. And we talked about that. In fact, one of my teachings was on the three turnings of the wheel. This also describes the different aspects of training that the Buddha taught, the three yanas. Yana in Sanskrit is the word for vehicle, and that can transport us across the river of samsara, suffering, to the other shore, liberation. So the Buddha taught these meditations after his enlightenment, to the five yogis from his omniscience. He knew his five, the yogis that he had traveled with before he went on his own and sat under the Bodhi tree and attained his enlightenment. The Buddha taught this meditation as the first of his teachings, the Four Noble Truths. So we emphasize is placed on the importance of meditation. However, we cannot truly practice without some basic understanding of the nature of the mind and reality. So the Buddhist teachings guide us in how to become familiar with our basic goodness. It's called the Buddha nature. And this is inherent in everyone, without exception. Our lives are very complicated and stressful, but we can learn to use our meditation practice to develop calmness and tranquility. And it will not bring instant results, but if we are consistent and sincere, beneficial changes will gradually evolve and gradually develop. I do want to leave some time for us for some questions as well, but let's see. I think that we don't need to go through. So I think all of you know the different aspects for the sitting practice. Does anyone want a basic instruction on sitting practice? I think everyone has that, but if you want a quick description of the sitting practice, we can certainly do that. I see someone say yes, please. Okay. So there are, briefly, Khenpo Rinpoche tells us, there are different instructions on meditation found in the sutras and the tantras, but the first, just briefly, again, you're sitting comfortably on the floor or in a seat, and settling yourself in a comfortable seat and posture, safe, feeling safe and in a quiet place where you'll not be disturbed. And then you can sit in the Vajra posture, right and left on the foot, on the thighs, or in a chair, whatever is most comfortable for you, on a zafu or zabuton like we have at KTD. And if, when you're serious about practice, you really do have to have a place to practice. So creating a space in your home, it can be just a small corner, in your house, in your bedroom, in an extra room that you have, if you have an extra room, but it doesn't have to be big. If it's in your bedroom, you can have one of those kind of screens around it so that you are it's quiet and you are undisturbed and no one can see you. You can't see anyone else. You want to make it comfortable and safe. So, but you know, not everyone is accustomed to these different postures. So we do we see the Buddha seated in a particular posture, like the Buddha in back of me here, in a cross-legged posture. His hands are right hand and left, thumbs gently touching and resting on the in the lower abdomen, on the feet, and the thumbs are gently touching about the level of the navel. And that is a comfortable position of equanimity. Or Khenpo Rinpoche often teaches to have the thumb in the ring joint, a gentle fist, and that can be on the knees. So that is, we're not going through all of the postures, but it is like that. You can begin like that. So you place the hands in one of those two contemplative gestures. Keep your spine straight. And the neck is also straight, and you tuck in the chin a little bit to straighten the upper cervical vertebrae. And the eyes can be cast down at a 45-degree angle, looking at an imaginary spot about 2 feet in front or straight ahead. But the eyes are gently opened, not overly like usual in our usual waking state. The lids are relaxed and half opened, half closed. And the chin is slightly tucked in. And our awareness can be on a physical kind of thing, like a rupa, an image of the Buddha, or the breath. Often we'll use the breath because it is something that we have with us all the time, and it is a fine means for us. And in the beginning, often just to stabilize the mind, doing 21 breaths. So breathing in, breathing out 1, breathing in, breathing out 2, to the count of 21. There's nothing magical about 21 breaths, but it is a way to disengage from the constant monkey mind and continually bringing it back so that you can stay with the breath for 21 breaths without being distracted, without losing count. But again, that is contrived, the counting. We want to ultimately let that go as well. And we just rest in the natural state of our clear awareness. So we begin the meditation. You sit in the posture described for a few moments. Take a slow, relaxed breaths. And you can imagine the cool on the inhale, warm on the exhale. And we're not going to follow distracting thoughts. You're going to follow the breath, which keeps your mind sharp and clear and one-pointed, focusing on the sensations of the breath, as this gives the mind something to follow in the beginning. Again, we're training the mind just like training a puppy. And just like training a puppy, you have to go over it again and again. When you say sit, the puppy runs off. You have to, again, gently and compassionately and patiently go again. Sit, stay. And it's the same thing with our mind. Sit, stay. And we want that mind to behave and to be able to do that. And, you know, as we do this, inevitably, you know, thoughts will distract you now and then and taking you away from the awareness of the breath. But noticing this distraction is the first benefit that you'll experience in meditation. The busyness of the mind is something that has been going on all your life. And when you notice that you are involved with thought, just recognize it as thinking and go back to the sensation of the breath repeatedly. There's no judgment. Again, there's no judgment about the thoughts, no judgment or blaming yourself if your attention slips. We just continue to mindfully follow the breath. And thoughts will come and go. We can imagine them as clouds in a spacious sky or a wave in a vast ocean, seeing the moment of arising and then just letting it dissolve back into emptiness. We return again and again to the sensation of the breathing, letting the breath anchor our awareness. So remain mindful and vigilant in the beginning of your practice. We monitor ourselves not to be excessively relaxed or excessively rigid. And this balance of correct effort could be compared, as we mentioned, to a stringed instrument, such as a lute or a guitar. And if these strings are too loose and not stretched enough, there'll be no sound. But if stretched too tight, it'll break. It would be too tight. And we want our minds and our bodies to be just right, not too loose, not too tight. And in the beginning, we'll try not to entertain expectations, about acquiring great abilities and powers. Just do the practice without hope and fear and see what happens. Maintain an open and joyful mind. Practice with joyful perseverance. And the other important aspect is to meditate regularly. You have to have a daily practice. We're saying we're training our mind, we're becoming familiar with our mind. And it is better to do, and particularly in the beginning, shorter meditations than trying to sit for an hour or two at a time. Our mind is just going to be running here, there, and the next place. Until you have that stability, until the mind is trained to remain one-pointed on the breath, you continue to do that. And then you can extend the time out more and more, or have an extra practice, maybe morning and evening. And if we do this regularly and it become a process and we are constructing a new lifelong habit of meditation, which is essential to our progress on the path. You can also extend the length of time, for your meditation, extending it out more and more, and add a second session, as I say, if you like. And we are now strengthening the mental muscle in our meditation. It's like when we go to the gym and we're strengthening our physical muscles. Here we're strengthening our mental muscle in meditation. And it does take time, just like it takes time in the gym to develop our physical muscles. It's because the mind is so facile, it even takes a little bit more to actually stabilize the mind and to make it workable. So when we say stay, it actually does. So important to establish that daily practice. So maybe, are there questions? Does anybody have any questions about anything I said? There's also walking meditation, which is, I think, very good for Westerners. The Buddha said to practice mindfulness well in all four postures, in all activities, in meditation retreats around the world. Yogis practice mindfulness when walking, standing, sitting, and lying down. In all these things, they practice mindfulness at all times and in all situations. And that's what we want to do. So we can do walking meditation at any time, by itself or in conjunction with our sitting practice. And for Westerners, I think it's very helpful to do a walking meditation. It's not done so much in Tibet, but the Buddha did teach this. And when you're walking, know you're walking. And you can be mindful even when you're in your daily life. When you're walking and taking a step, you feel the movement of your foot. If you have your weight on the right foot, extend the left foot down, lay the foot down, heel toe, shift the weight as if you're pressing down on the earth. And then you're 100% in that left foot. You pick up the rear foot, you bring it forward. You're aware of moving, lay it down, empty, then shift the weight and press it down. So you're aware of these different aspects of the walking meditation. The hands are in front, the level of the navel, in the same way that, we talked about. You can be in that mudra of equanimity, similar to the sitting practice. This is a gesture of mindfulness and equipoise. So the feet, as I mentioned, we walk by first lifting the heel, and then we roll the foot forward, onto the tip of the toe, and then lifting the foot off the ground and moving it forward. We take the step, placing the heel on the ground, and gradually the whole foot, and then shifting the weight. So we're mindful of these 4 stages, these various stages of walking. Usually they're pretty unconscious, but this is a way of moving meditation, walking meditation, lifting the foot, moving the foot forward, putting the foot down, shifting the weight, and pressing the foot against the ground. And the pace is a little slower than would be naturally when you're walking, but practice that. Try it. See what you think. Thich Nhat Hanh says, walk as if your feet are kissing the earth. That's a nice image. Okay. Again, boy, I can't believe the time has gone by so fast. Okay, if there are questions. Yes, someone says that Rinpoche said not to meditate for too long, particularly in the beginning. Yes, that is true. If there are any questions, if you would let me know.
There's one. Pat asked, "Does Buddhism have the concept of grace?"
I've never heard a definition for grace, but I think it will come out of. I think the thing that I would say is most akin to that blessing or grace would be merit. From our good actions come a natural blessing, or I don't know how we're defining grace. So I imagine if we ask 5 people, we get 5 different answers about what is grace. But I would say that merit is a very important concept in Buddhism. That when we cultivate our wanting to benefit beings, and we always dedicate the merit of our activity to the benefit of beings. And that allows us this opportunity. It actually deepens our practice, and that is really the title of this teaching tonight, to develop merit, through our activity on the cushion and off the cushion. Certainly we spend more time off the cushion than we do on the cushion, but we want to bring our mindfulness to the activity off the cushion. As we said, the Buddha said in sitting and lying and walking, in all the different ways that we want to remain mindful.
We have another question about, can you provide an explanation of contrived versus uncontrived?
Well, if we're talking about the breath, for example, contrived would be where we're forcing it in some way. We're holding the breath in some way, or where it's not natural. The uncontrived is a natural breath. So it's a natural and not forced. Hopefully that answers the question.
We have no further questions in the chat right now, but Pat responded. Pat was the one who asked the question about grace and said, "Thank you very much. Your words are very helpful to understand better."
Okay, good. All right. Well, we are coming to the end, and if there are no further questions, and we were just talking about dedicating the merit, which is an important part of the practice. So at home, when you are doing your daily practice, whether that is, It can be doing your sitting practice, shamatha or tranquility meditation, or nundro, or the yidam practices. We do yidam practices. So when we have the visualization in our yidam practice, we're visualizing the Pure Land, or the Buddha Bodhisattva that we're practicing. That visualization that we're doing is shamatha. And when we're doing the mantra recitation, at the conclusion of the mantra recitation, we rest the mind in its natural state. And that is vipassana. That is the clear awareness state, the direct experience of the nature of our mind. And that is what we're doing at that time. So we're practicing shamatha and vipassana in the yidam practice. It's a skillful means for seeing this as a pure realm. And so when we do the yidam practices, we're seeing ourselves in purity as the deity. We're seeing all beings in that fashion, and we're purifying our mind through the mantra recitation, and then resting the mind afterwards. And before we do the dedication of merit, that is vipassana. So these are all aspects of the skillful means of yidam practice. Okay, so we will dedicate the merit. Just move that out of the way. Sonam tam chezik pani topne ne pedranam bachene kegana chi balang chukpayi si pe sole droa nerdro show. Jambal pawo jita ken padam kundu zambo deyam de jente de da kunji jesu da pluching gewa di da tamche raptuno. Du zi le jiao jiao wei trin le pa Dharma pa ten bei ning bodhi chotar gun job ching gun mi che tak para pel wei tar shi sho. Thank you, everyone. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to teach, and to give you the opportunity to study. So do attend as much as you can the remaining sessions. We have wonderful teachers, better teachers than me. So do yourself a favor and continually to cultivate virtue by listening to these teachings, and would also help you to avoid the negative karma of wrongdoing, and certainly to tame your mind. So we can finish here. I thank you very much. And again, at the end of these 5 sessions, there'll be a 6th session that will be a question and answer, and I will be back on that time as well. But until then, I wish you the very best. May all be auspicious for you. Thank you.